Central African time. In just a few minutes, we'll be looking at the latest market indicators and then also going into the business of sport. But before we do that, we continue our focus on the automotive industry, but this time not related with the Competition Commission, but rather with Ford South Africa. They're planning to lay off more than 470 of their employees as the company seeks to adjust production capacity to match current and future market demands. The jobs affected are 391 operator positions at the Silverton car assembly plant in the country's capital of Pretoria, the city of Tshwane, 73 at the Struandale engine plant in Gqeberha, a major seaport, and 10 administrative roles. Labour Union Solidarity says this move by Ford is indicative of economic pressures, international political uncertainties, and the government's unfavourable policies, which are making the industry increasingly less competitive. For more on this, we joined this afternoon by Willie Venter, the Deputy General Secretary of Solidarity. Good to have you with us on Africa in Business, so welcome.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Well, the automotive industry has already seen 12 company closures and over 4,000 jobs lost. And this is just in the past 2 years. What does Ford's retrenchment spell for the sector? And what more can we expect if nothing does change?
Well, I think for the last couple of months, not couple of months, few months, there's been warning signs issued from major car manufacturers in the South African vehicle manufacturing industry around economic pressures and the pressures that they have to sustain their viability with. And I'm thinking of, for instance, Toyota South Africa. We had Mercedes South Africa also indicating that they are under pressure. And we also know that Nissan South Africa is also reassessing their footprint, not just internationally, but also in South Africa. So it's been coming for a while that we've been seeing these warning signs. They are specifically highlighting the ports that are not necessarily accommodating the exports and the on-time delivery as it should. They've also indicated that imports for local car sales are indicating that it's on an upward trend, and mostly from China and India. So they have to compete with imported cars whilst they have to invest and manufacture from scratch in South Africa. And for these last few months, none of them has really indicated that job losses would be imminent. Ford's notification that we received is the first of that. And we are obviously worried that this is the start of possible more retrenchments to come if there's no real and drastic intervention in the worries that the vehicle manufacturing industry is trying to portray.
And maybe let me ask you a bit more about that. What is it exactly that needs to change? What needs to turn the tide for the industry? I mean, you've identified some economic pressures, but you've also highlighted international political uncertainties as well as the government's unfavourable policies as the key factors. But let's look at solutions. What needs to change?
No, you're 100% correct. And if I maybe just broaden the scope of the narrative of what I'm trying to bring across, we're looking at the manufacturing industry as a whole. And then we will see that the vehicle manufacturing sector inside this is a large portion of it that's been quiet for a lot of years with regards to job losses. They've done really well. They've added a lot of value to the GDP, and they've created jobs. They've not lost jobs. That's the one thing. But in the larger scope of the manufacturing industry, we have been bombarded over the last few months and couple of years with job losses. We're looking at the ArcelorMittal long steel products that are on the verge of closing unless there's drastic intervention. We're still awaiting the outcome of that. We've been seeing the closure of Gqeberha South Africa recently in the Eastern Cape, where 900 jobs were lost. We know about the smelters, Amanco and Glencore, that's under pressure. And a lot of that, together with Goodyear, indicates that there are policy problems. There are, for instance, imports. I'm calling it cheap imports. That impact their compatibility or competitiveness, and there's something that needs to be done to balance that situation. We're not indicating that there should not be any imports, but I mean we have to be realistic in terms of tariffs, etc., to protect local manufacturing and make them competitive, or assist them to make them competitive to export and to compete locally. A lot of the other reasons, or some of the other reasons that they mentioned, sorry ma'am for interrupting you, is obviously the manufacturing cost that we can bring back to transport cost, we can bring it back to electricity cost, and that's all over the spectrum of the manufacturing industry, not just vehicle manufacturing. But it's at this point in time unclear exactly in Ford's situation what is impacting their market. They have indicated that they planned for 165,000 units to be produced at the Silverton line. They have to now adjust that plan to reduce it by roughly 50,000 units, and that's quite a lot. That's a third of their production that they estimated that's being reduced. And we need to understand, and we will probably understand through the consultation process, why there's that large reduction in their estimate and what the reasons are for that. And then from there we can work and try and find solutions.
You know, as you're speaking, I'm reminded of what's currently happening now in the United States. And I wonder if that is a possible solution for you as Solidarity and the industry at large. Because right now, the Department of Commerce, they've conducted an investigation into what is called, quote unquote, the dumping of non-corrosive steel in the United States. Obviously, that has impacted the domestic market. And they found about 10 countries, including South Africa, to be guilty of that. And so they're going to be imposing additional tariffs on those countries and the importation of steel. Could that be a solution for us as South Africa?
Absolutely. You are 100% correct. Obviously, I'm only saying that we haven't started consultation, so I'm not sure what exactly the reasons would be for the reduced estimate at Ford. But you're 100% correct. That was one of the main reasons listed at Goodyear South Africa's closure. There's dumping taking place for cheap tires imported from especially the East, and they cannot compete with those finished products. Steel, very much true. I mean, ArcelorMittal has been claiming the dumping of steel for a long time now, and that it's not being monitored the way it should be. So it's very realistic to believe that the import of vehicles that are manufactured outside of the borders of South Africa, they are not impacted by the production cost that the local OEMs have to sit with. So they have the unfair disadvantage in terms of that. And I believe that there are obviously taxes and tax implications that go with that. And we have to be realistic that those sorts of interventions and adjustments needs to take place. And we need government to assist that process. We've been calling for that for a long time now as Solidarity, that we need government's intervention and participation in these over the global manufacturing industry in South Africa, because it affects a lot of sectors.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Really, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave our conversation there. But we thank you so much for just bringing this to the forefront once again. And also, as you say, the investigations that are to continue, Ford being the first, and who knows what will follow after that. We thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Willie Venter. He's the Deputy General Secretary of Solidarity. He takes us to the markets desk, where Thabiso Lehoko is standing by with your latest market indicators.